When I was 7, I learned a shocking truth about my family. Usually, I spent a lot of time alone. Our house was in the middle of nowhere, a Victorian with peeling shutters that creaked in the wind like an old ship. My parents and I had just moved to Ashford, Maine. It was a small, quiet town where everyone knew everyone else and where secrets were kept better than anywhere else. My mother worked as a nurse at a local clinic, and my father was an engineer, constantly on business trips. I was often left with my grandmother, Grace, who loved game shows and never paid attention when I wandered around the house. Especially the attic. The attic was every child's dream. Dusty, smelling of old books, dust, and wood. But you couldn't go up there without permission. My mother said it was dangerous, especially with the old wiring and the weak floors. But to me, that only made it more appealing. One rainy evening, when my parents went to dinner with some new friend of my dad's, I decided to take a chance. I knew that Grandma would be dozing off in front of the TV, and this was my chance. But before I got up, I went into my parents' bedroom. I don't know why. Something seemed to be calling me. In my mother's jewelry drawer, I found a small velvet bag. There was a key in it, silver, thin, with the numbers 1913 on it. It looked old, almost antique. I immediately remembered the old metal chest with the lock in the attic. I tried to open it more than once, but in vain. This time, it clicked. The key fit perfectly. Inside were a pile of yellowed papers, old letters, photographs with the captions Summer 1983 and Hannah's birthday. And one thing that stood out from the general picture was the book. The cover was black, cracked like a diary. On the inside was the inscription, Emily M. Personal. I froze. My name was Emily too, but the handwriting was childish, with curls, as if it had been written by a schoolgirl. I began to read. The first entries described the life of a girl who felt useless. Her mother, as it was written, constantly said, "You're not mine." At first I thought it was a work of fiction, but then everything became too specific. It described a hospital, a stormy night, a power outage, panic among the staff. Something had happened to the children in the neonatal ward. There was a mention of confused tags about a woman who knew something, but disappeared. And then a page written in red ink. She's not mine. I know it, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't give her away. I love her, not as a mother, as a victim of my weakness. My heart sank. It was more than just a child's diary. And the deeper I read, the more I understood this story somehow touched me. I turned the page and saw a child's photo. A little girl in a blue dress stood by a fountain. Behind was an old building that looked like a hospital. I looked closely. The girl looked like me. A sudden cold gripped me. The attic became eerily quiet, and then I heard the creak of stairs. Someone was coming up. I hurriedly stuffed the diary back into the chest, closed it, and hid the key in my pajamas pocket. The door opened. It was Mom. She didn't scream. She didn't stop. She just looked at me. Her eyes were devastated, like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. "Where did you get the key?" she asked, almost in a whisper. "In your drawer." She held out her hand. I gave her the key. We went downstairs in silence. That night, Mom didn't say a word. She didn't kiss me goodnight. She didn't wish me sweet dreams. She just closed the door to my room and stood there for a long time. I could hear her breathing. The next morning, something had changed. She acted differently. Indifferent. As if I wasn't her daughter anymore. After that night, something changed in the house. Not just in my mother's behavior, everything. There was a tension in the air. Every sound seemed louder, every look longer, every silence deeper. My mother no longer asked me how my day was. Her eyes grew darker. She seemed afraid of me or of what I might ask. I went to school as usual. I sat at my desk, staring out the window, trying to remember every word from that diary. What was exchange? Why had she written that I wasn't hers? And who was my real mother then? That evening, when my mother had gone to the store and my grandmother was napping after the news, I went up to the attic again. Now I knew the chest was empty. My mother had taken everything away. But I needed something more. I checked every nook and cranny, and then I noticed that one of the planks on the floor was wobbly. I carefully lifted it up. Underneath it lay an envelope. Yellow, with burnt edges but no dust, as if someone had left it recently. On the envelope was written in block letters, "Emily, open when you know the truth." Inside was a sheet of paper, written in neat handwriting, and a photo. First a text: "My name is Clara Davis. I worked the night shift in the maternity ward at Ashford Hospital in 1994, the night you were born. That night there was a fire. All the newborns were evacuated in a hurry. When we restored order, some of the records burned. I saw 2 girls born 5 minutes apart. One of them had a birthmark, a small dark star near her neck. The other had the same one. We believe that in the chaos you may have been mixed up. I kept quiet all these years. But now I am sick, and I want you to know the mother you know may not be your biological mother. But I saw her holding you after the evacuation. Her hands were shaking, but she did not let go. She looked at you with pain and with love in. The photo is your biological mother. She is not knows what happened. She's been looking for you for years. Her name is Sarah. I took the photo. The woman with long red hair was holding a baby. She was smiling, but her eyes were wet. My fingers trembled. Even though I'd never seen her before, I felt like I knew her. That somewhere inside me there was a memory of her embrace. I was tucking the envelope into my bosom when I heard someone come up to the attic. It was Grandma. "Are you back, Emily?" she asked quietly. Her voice was gentle but a little scared. "This is no place for a child." I nodded silently. She knew something. I could feel it, but I didn't dare ask. Not yet. I couldn't sleep that night. Sarah's photo was under my pillow. Clara's letter was in my backpack. I scrolled through every sentence, every word, and then I decided I should ask directly. In the morning, at breakfast, I looked at my mother. She was drinking her coffee without looking at me. "Mom," I said, "are you really my mother?" She wasn't surprised. She just sighed. For the first time in days, she looked me in the eye. "And if not," she said quietly, "what would you do?" I didn't answer. "You're mine, Emily, even if it was different once. I raised you. I remember the first time you laughed, how you took your first steps, how you were afraid of frogs. To me, you're mine." But I felt that she was hiding something. There was no confidence in her voice, only fatigue. That night I heard her voice. She was talking on the phone. I tiptoed out of my room. "She knows, Clara. She found the letter. I don't know what to tell her." Her voice broke. "I'm not ready to lose her. She's mine, even if Sarah." I heard no more, but that was enough. Clara was real. Sarah existed. And everything I knew about my childhood could turn out to be a lie. A few days later I began my own investigation, while my mother tried to act as usual, making dinner, ironing shirts, talking on the phone with my aunt. I searched. I found old hospital records in the Ashford library. They mentioned the name Sarah Davis. She had given birth to a daughter the same night as my mother. The address, of course, was no longer valid. But I found something better, a reference to Sarah working as a lecturer at a college in Bangor. I was 7, I didn't know how to write a formal letter, but I wrote it the way I felt. I signed it simply. "I'm Emily. I think we're related." I sent the letter from the post office under the guise of a school assignment, and I waited. That time, the tension at home had grown even more intense. My mother was being careful. At night I could hear her crying. One day my grandmother came into my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and without looking at me said, "I shouldn't have been silent. But sometimes silence is a way to preserve love." We didn't know how else to be. I didn't answer. A week later an envelope arrived from Bangor. It was neatly written. Inside was a short letter. "Dear Emily, I've been waiting for this letter all my life. I don't know what they told you, but if you want me to come, I'll come. I have no claim on you, but I have hope. With love, Sarah." 2 days later she arrived. She was standing on the porch with a travel bag, an old album in her hands. Her eyes were the same as mine, greenish, with a hint of gold. She was nervous, but she was smiling. "Hello, Emily," she said. "Hi," I said. We sat in the living room. Sarah opened the album. There were photos: a girl in a pink bodysuit, a doll with a red ribbon, a birth certificate. One of the toys was familiar. It had been in my room since I was a child. Mom said it was a gift from the hospital. "I gave this doll to my daughter," Sarah said quietly. It had a red ribbon. My grandmother made it. I nodded silently. My head was buzzing. When Mom came home and saw us together, she froze. Sarah, she said. Emily deserves to know, Sarah said. I didn't come to pick up anything. Mom clenched her jaw. Do you have any idea what happened that night? They mixed up the children. I didn't know if it was my child, but she was in my hands. I couldn't give her away. She was already mine. I don't judge, Sarah said quietly, but they took everything from me, and they took my peace, my mother said. Every night I was afraid someone would knock on the door and say, "This isn't your child." Do you think it's easy? I don't think it was easy, but I had a right to know that she was alive. They were both looking at me, and there I was standing between two women who both called me their daughter. They didn't raise their voices, but there was a storm in every word. I didn't know what to feel. Love, anger, confusion. I turned to Sarah. Why didn't you look for me sooner? I did, but the hospital said everything was fine, that there was no evidence, that I was just losing my mind from exhaustion. I gave up, and now I just want to know you, not take you away, not change you, just be there. I looked at my mother. Did you know? Yes, she whispered. I knew from day one, but I was afraid to say. I was afraid I would lose you. I lowered my eyes. That was the moment my world cracked in half. I felt like I was standing on the edge of an abyss, and there was no longer any ground under my feet. But suddenly I realized, maybe being someone's is not just about DNA. It's about choice, about who holds you when you're scared, and who wants to hold you even if they don't have the right. After that meeting with Sarah, I couldn't find a place for myself. The house became cramped, even though the walls hadn't changed. The silence between my mother and me became thick again, like a damp fog. I didn't know how to look her in the eye, and I didn't know how to look Sarah in the eye either. I was disappearing. In my room, in school, in myself. One evening, when my mother had gone to the pharmacy, my grandmother knocked on my door. She was holding a box of yellowed paper. You should read this, she said. Your mother once wrote a letter, but she didn't dare send it. It was a letter to Sarah, written several years ago. Sarah, I know you haven't forgotten, because I couldn't. Every day I look at the little girl who became my world and think, maybe I stole her from you. I held her that night when no one could tell whose we were, and I chose her. I decided I wouldn't give her away. I was afraid that you would show up, that you would be better, that she would love you more, and I would be left with nothing. Forgive me. I don't know if you'll ever get this letter, but if you do, know this. I love her, and I can't imagine life without her. My fingers trembled as I read. I cried. Mom was no saint. She made a choice, a painful, controversial one, but she was afraid of losing. The next day I went to Sarah's, alone. She was temporarily staying in a motel on the outskirts of Ashford. We sat in a park nearby. It was gloomy. The trees were bare like open palms. I read the letter, I said. She couldn't send it. Sarah was silent. I don't know who I am, whose I am, but I know I don't want to run away anymore, and I don't want you to disappear. But I can't love you right away, and I can't betray my mother. Sarah sighed. I'm not asking for love. I'm asking for space, even the smallest one. I nodded. I'll give you that space, but in my own way. We sat in silence. She took a flower from her bag, a white gerbera. I used to put one at the entrance to the hospital every year, the day you were born. I didn't know where you were, but I believed you were alive. My heart sank at these words. I imagined, every year a woman puts a flower and leaves, without an answer. Returning home, I went into the kitchen. Mom was washing dishes. When she saw me, she froze. Mom, I said, I read your letter. I know everything. And I forgive. I know that you made a choice. And I know that you love me. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't say a word. She just held me close. And for the first time in a week, I didn't feel cold. That night I wrote my first letter. I didn't intend to send it. I wrote it to myself. Emily, you didn't lose your family. You saw it whole, broken, conflicted, but real. Your story is complicated, but it's yours, and you have the right to love them both, and you have the right to be yourself. This is not the end. This is the beginning. I put the letter in the box next to the key. Just like that. With the numbers 1913, 10 years have passed. I am now a student in the Department of Philology in Boston. I have my own apartment with cracked windows, a neighbor who listens to jazz all the time, and a houseplant that stubbornly refuses to grow. My life is far from Ashford, but it pulls threads from the past. I didn't choose between my mother and Sarah. I chose both, and each in her own way. I call my mother simply Mom. She is the one who sat by my bed when I was sick, the one who made pancakes in the shape of bears. She is my daily love. Sarah is my quiet presence. We don't call every day, but she sends me cards. She invites me to birthday parties. She becomes someone I didn't know, and I still open them. Last year she had another daughter. Her name is Lily. She invited both my mother and me to the christening. It was the first time we had all gathered together since that night in the park. The room was crowded, but I could only see two women, the one holding the baby and the one standing a little to the side, her hands trembling. Mom approached Sarah herself. Without my asking, "She's beautiful," Mom said, pointing to Lily. "Thank you," Sarah said. Her voice was soft. There was silence between them. But for the first time, it wasn't hostile. It wasn't tense. Just a silence that didn't hurt. "You raised a good daughter," Sarah added. Mom just smiled and nodded. After the christening, Sarah came up to me and handed me an envelope. "I've kept this for years," she said. "It came in the mail from the lab, but I didn't open it because I realized that the truth isn't just DNA." I took the envelope. It was heavy, white, with the stamp of a private genetics laboratory. I didn't open it that day. I didn't open it the next. It wasn't until a week later, when I returned to Boston, that I tore the edge. Inside were 3 sheets of paper. The third was short and the most important. Result: incompatibility of biological relationship. No genetic connection between Emily Moore and Sarah Davis was found. I reread it several times. My head was empty. I wasn't Sarah's daughter. Not by blood, but something inside me hadn't broken. On the contrary, I felt relieved, because now I knew for sure. Family isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And I had 2 women who loved me, and whom I learned to love in different ways. I put the result in the same diary I once found in the attic. In a leatherette cover, next to a photo of me standing by a fountain in a blue dress. This diary is the beginning of all my questions, but I already write my answers myself.